Paul.
Wow, we're recording. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am super excited for this particular episode. First of all, welcome to yet another episode of So You Think You Got Problems? We got
problems.
And we got brother Jeff Keller, brother Mike Moritor, and our special guest, that pretty ginger that you see over there with the fabulous beard. Is unfortunately straight, but his name is Ryan Bourassa, and he is an amazing. He's one of my personal favorite comedians. I've had the pleasure of doing shows with him in Vegas a bunch, and we actually went on the road and we did a couple shows in Salt Lake City. Ryan, introduce yourself and say hello to the 3 or 4 people that are watching this as we speak.
Hello, people of the internet. I feel like Unfortunately Straight should be the name of my first album. I hear that a lot.
You can always change it, Ryan.
I get that constantly from people. Hello, people of the internet, and thank you guys for having me on the show. I appreciate it. Ron is incorrect in all of his compliments.
Absolutely, I was lying. But I just wanted to feel good.
A lot of people like to say how amazing old Ryan Berinsky is, and then it turns out he's just a quiet weirdo.
We like that. So Ryan, we have you on the show. You're our third cisgendered straight male that we've had on this. We usually have diversity people or Oompa Loompas like Mike. You're very welcome, Mike. Ryan, I know, just to introduce it, Mike, Ryan, I know you struggle with mental health issues. If you would like to jump into that a little bit. And
sure.
Then your side, how does that help your comedy? And then talk about your side hustle where you make money on pictures if you're down with that too. And then we'll take it from there.
You mentioned cisgender. Cisgender. That's
you're cisgender, yes.
Yeah. I will say though, in terms of that, I do have some melanin in me. I got plenty of freckles, Ron. Not just a white boy, but I was also raised by lesbians too. So that gave me.
Tell us about that shit.
That gave me a tap into, oppression and the feeling of being judged based on something really stupid. So I understand that kind of world a lot. But yeah, my mom dated women for like the first 18 years of my life. So I've had a little peek into that world, and you get to see how people treat others, and it's usually really, really bad, especially back in the day when I was a teenager, even younger. Seeing people look at your mom holding another woman's hand or something like that, just going shopping and shit like that, would gave me a little insight into why it's not very kind to be so American and hate minority groups and stuff like that. So little insight in there. And then, also mental health was a big thing that gives you a big peek into how people are treated just because they might be a little different. And depression is honestly kind of an understatement. About 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and major depressive disorder, along with various anxieties and things like that. Social anxiety being the biggest one, having a hard time in regular conversation, thinking of what to say. It really bugs the fuck out of me, honestly. Drives me crazy. But borderline personality disorder, for those who don't know, is one of the various personality disorders that exist out there in the world. A lot of people don't like the name borderline personality disorder because it makes it sound like you have multiple personalities or something along those lines. So a lot of people also call it emotional regulation disorder. Before Ron and I agreed to be before I agreed to be on the show, I was like, I'll probably cry a bunch, and I'm feeling good right now, so I doubt I will. So I'm sorry to ruin it for you. It's early, right? No, I woke up, I smoked some weed. It's 4th of July. I'm gonna go to a party later. I'm in a pretty good mood, and it's good to talk to you nerds. So borderline personality disorder or emotional regulation disorder, for people who don't know, has a bunch of varying symptoms. I recommend checking them out sometime. They're pretty interesting. But the main ones being along the lines of a very, very hard to maintain emotional regulation, meaning when you get sad, you get way beyond sad, and
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of hard to explain to people because when you say stuff like that, people go, yeah, I have my down days too. And it's like,
No.
I don't want to downplay what you're going through, but this is crying hysterically in public. Oftentimes I had to put my fucking roommates through just me crying at the supermarket the other day. Thankfully I carry sunglasses around because I've gotten so fucking used to it. It's so embarrassing, but it's just literally a moment that you're overwhelmed with something, and then before you know it, you're having a loop of negative thoughts where that's the only dominating thought too. You're not thinking about anything else. And
Do you have a tree of people that you can call? Like I have the same thing. I
yeah.
think mine's from CTE. Like I don't keep guns or anything in here
Uh-huh.
because people don't understand. You can just be watching something on TV and it starts it off.
Oh yeah.
So I have a tree of people that I can call that help talk me down. Do you have that?
Oh yeah, I've definitely have plenty of people that I could turn to, but in my experience, I usually don't, because I know that I'm gonna get over it soon enough. It's just usually like a panic attack, essentially. So a lot of the times it has to do with self-worth, which is another thing that comes with BPD, is a very low sense of self-worth, or unfortunately a very violent side. And I'm very fortunate to fall into the category of non-violent, self-hating type. But a lot of people with BP, I was looking up, role models to try to find who also had borderline personality disorder. Pete Davidson, one of my favorite SNL people, he has BPD, which that was a relief to me. But everything else I found when it came down to comedians, one guy was listed as a guy who went to jail for beating his wife. And I was just like, well, shit, this sucks. Like, there's no one out here to represent this sort of thing. I only talked about a couple of the symptoms. Another big one is a constant sense of abandonment, which is why I try to avoid relationships. My last relationship, we were just two whores that got together, and we're like, let's stop being whores, and it was just a terrible idea. Entire relationship fell apart. But prior to that, I avoided relationships. I'm a bit of a lady killer. I do all right with women. I don't even approach women. Women approach me. I've had a pretty decent life in that area, but I've learned after a while that if I enter a relationship, I'm just going to get really agitated. And I've noticed, because I've single-handedly ruined my marriage. I used to be married for 5 years or 3 years or whatever. And single-handedly looking back, this is nearly 7 years ago or something like that. Looking back, I can easily recognize all the issues that I was having with anger and depression, and just literally not even be able to communicate with a person, and wanting to get to know everything about a person as quickly as humanly possible, only to wind up devaluing them over a period of time, if not months. And then if you force yourself through a relationship that you probably shouldn't be in, it just keeps getting worse and worse. But that's a big part of BPD too, is just a sense of attaching yourself to somebody, and then it becomes dependent, like you really need this person to be in your life to take care of you and stuff like that. But so I avoid relationships entirely, just because I know how I can be sometimes. I like to say, for shorthand for people that don't understand, because there is a lot to explain. Like I said, I recommend checking out the symptoms sometime. Jeffrey said that he's pretty familiar with it himself. The way that I like to explain it to people is, I'm on my period all the time. Like, I just,
That's Jeff. That's totally Jeff.
It is, yeah, I explain it to everybody that way, because it's just like, that's the easiest way that I can explain it.
There's no rhyme or reason. It can hit me at any time.
Yeah.
I think it's what I found out over the years for me, it has to do with foods that I might eat.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I'm very, that's why I eat like very healthy, very clean diet.
Yep.
Because before I did that, those mood swings, and then I had a couple concussions, but you know, I think all that factor into it.
Sure.
Now, Ryan, have you had these symptoms your whole life from the time you were little?
I would say so because I will never forget being a real little kid and just being at, like, say we'd go out to a restaurant, like my parents or my mom or girlfriend and their other lesbian friends, they all met at softball or boxing. Let's say we all go out to an Applebee's together. There's maybe 10 of us or something like that. I distinctly remember several times as a young kid, people would talk to me, my mom's friends, and I'd just start crying. Like I got the nickname Crying Ryan in elementary school because I would just start crying. And it got so bad that we would wind up going to a restaurant again. And it got so bad to the point where my mom would say, just leave him alone. Just don't dig in any further because it's just going to make him feel like there's something wrong. It's hard for me to even understand what that means. You know, why does a little kid feel that way? Turns out it was not the right thing to do, probably, and made it a little hard for me to communicate with people as an adult. But yeah, I'll never forget that. So yeah, I would say that I had these problems my entire life, and it is something that you go through your entire life. They say that at some point you grow out of it, but I don't know about that. That requires a lot of work. Work that I can't necessarily afford or want to even do, honestly. The idea of group therapy is a big thing in trying to get over, not get over, you never get over it, I think, but trying to better yourself. Group therapy, I don't know if I could ever do something like that. I'm not even a social person with my friends.
As a kid, did you spend a lot of time in your room alone?
Yeah, I was an only child. Yep.
Yeah.
It was Legos and video games. Still is, just the video games.
You create things in your room, like I would create stuff in my room. And,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
A lot of time alone.
Yeah.
And I love my mom, but I won't say that parents are ever perfect. And that's a big part of
Ryan,
developing these problems. What's up, Ron?
I got a two-part question, Ryan. Are there things that in particular that triggered you now? And then going back to something that you were saying before, because me obviously being gay, I really identify with a part of what you were saying about being with your mom, and seeing people react to them being gay. And I remember when I was a kid and seeing people reacting to other people that were obviously gay and the horror that I would experience from that. And I started to deny myself, in that way emotionally. Did anything like that happen with you? What's that?
Did you just call him a whore?
I accept the title.
Yeah. Did anything like that go on for you? And how did you deal with it as a kid? The differences between having a hetero parents and having straight gay parents and all that.
Well, my mom was incredibly butch. She literally would go to motorcycle weekends. My mom did the G.I. Jane haircut at some point and even cut the word hog into the back of her head. She was as butch as they could. I had two dads, pretty much. So, yeah, she stuck out like a sore thumb, as compared to a lot of the other moms in town. And I don't think, to my memory, I don't think I ever encountered another gay parent that I knew of, at least.
Interesting.
So, yeah, one thing that always stuck out to me was I went to a buddy's house and we were watching Elvis videos, and he's like a teenager. That should have been more of a red flag than my gay mom, is that your son is watching Elvis videos like intentionally. Um, uh, and my friend's dad comes home and he sits down with us and he goes, "Aren't you that kid that has the lesbian for a mom?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he just sat there and smiled at me, like full teeth smiling at me. I felt so fucking uncomfortable that this guy would just behave that way to a fucking teenager. Like, I was just so blown away. I remember going in high school, we had hilariously a gay guy come in and talk about tolerance. And this was in Epping, New Hampshire, where we had maybe 6 black people or some shit like that. You know, like it's a sea of white faces in this shithole town. Had a guy come in and talk about tolerance. Assembly ends. We go back to class, and some kid in my class goes, "Well, my religion is against that." And then he turns to his friend and he's like, "But I think lesbian porn is super hot." And it's just like, what the fuck? Like, I had all these little perfect. The thing about looking like a man and all that is that you blend in with other men. So it's, but I've never been a very masculine person myself. And it's just like you get these little opportunities to see just how terrible men are. I don't know how you do it, Ron. Men disgust me so
Right,
much.
but that leads me into a question I was going to
Well,
ask
that's
because I worked at a elementary school and we had a kid there whose mom was lesbian, so he basically had two moms,
Yeah.
and I would watch him struggle trying to deal with kids asking him about that. Um, so how did you deal with it? In elementary school and junior high, when people would say things, your mom would come pick you up, she'd have another woman with her. I mean, how did you deal with that?
In elementary school, I don't think I dealt with it. Um, at all, really. Maybe a little bit in middle school, but it actually wasn't that prominent. The things that I've listed off were the most notorious of the moments that come to mind. I also don't have a great memory of my childhood and things like that. So for all I know, it could have been more, could have been worse, whatever, could have been less, but those
But
were
how
the
did it make
moments
you
that really
feel?
stuck out.
But how did
Well,
it
it
make
made it made me feel terrible, but it also helped me recognize that it's wrong to treat people this way, like regardless of who they are. Like the only people that should probably be treated a little poorly are the people who are hating on other people so much. But
And so Ryan, you grew up in New Hampshire, yes?
Manchester, New Hampshire, yeah,
Okay, I grew up
that's
in
where it
New England.
started.
I grew up in New England as well. So it's interesting because there is a weird in New England. I grew up in Connecticut. There is a weird sensibility there as far as like racism. And I grew up with 4 gay cousins. So when they came out, they were constantly being tormented.
Yeah,
And they grew up in Connecticut, New York. So it is a weird place because where I grew up too, there was only like, I don't even consider myself really a minority, but there was like me and like 4 other people, and everybody was white, and everybody had a weird, crazy opinion about racism and sexuality. It
yeah,
was so ass backwards. So when I moved to New York and I traveled in Europe and I came here, I was like, these people are out of their fucking minds because they don't make
right.
any sense. And they've never, the fucked up thing about it, which I find interesting with you, is, I tell Ron and I talk about this shit all the time. People that hate gay people, they should at least have a gay friend or something where they have some kind of, they can relate to them, like they can learn from them by being around them.
Right.
And it's weird because people have these stupid ass opinions, but they're never even around these people ever. They have no interaction with them.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sure you went through that too, where you would look at these people. It's like you didn't even know my mother. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to articulate exactly why we all hate Ron, because we're all friends with Ron. So
Yes.
at least we've had time
Yeah.
with Ron, and we can tell you exactly why we hate Ron.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I had one gay friend in high school, and the friends that found out like it was like a mystery to them. Like they were solving a mystery the way that they presented it to me. And they were like, "Did you hear about Brandon?" And I was like, "What, is he gay?" And they were like, "Ooh," and it's just treating it like such a big deal. And it's like, okay, you catty little bitches, for fuck's sakes.
What, Brandon's gay?
Yeah, Brandon was
Yes.
gay the whole time, turns out. Actually, yeah, no, wound up having a couple gay friends in high school that just came out in high school, which was
And if you could message me, private message me their contact information.
I think they're in the middle of the country, but I'll let you know after the show. Sure thing.
Hey, don't be pimping for Ron. Don't be pimping for Ron.
I can't get up to topic. I'm already gonna forget the question. Yeah, I've had roommates that have said that hilarious shit. Like I write jokes about this stuff, honestly.
Yeah, you're great.
But I had a roommate that was like, we came back from a gay bar one night, or we were going out to a gay bar one night, and he was like, "I don't hate gay people, but I just hate when they flirt with me." And he's just like a hillbilly, like just trash, just wife beater, stained sweatpants type of guy. And it's like,
out in a gay bar.
Like gay people typically have taste, man. Like they're not flirting with you anytime soon. But I think growing up with two butch parents, my dad was also very, very butch. Redneck, I would call him. Where I get my ginger. Imagine me, but 300 pounds, a big fat balding ginger man. That'd be me. But both of them were incredibly butch, my parents. So I think I really strayed away from that. And I would get called gay all the time in high school. That's probably another big thing that had a big impact on me, obviously. But a lot of people call me gay all the time. I have a kind of a interesting voice. I don't know where I'd put my finger on it. Annoying is what I'd say. But
you have a white guy voice.
A white guy voice, and yeah, sure, I'll take that. I'd get called gay all the time because I was just, I'd go with it. That was my thing to.
That's hilarious.
That's where I started really building a sense of humor, or at least a sense of humor as a defense mechanism. Where are you gay? And you just go, "Yep." Like I don't want to even have this conversation. Just yes. Do you want to date?
You nailed my next question. When did you start? So you started. That's when you started using comedy as a defense mechanism. When did you start realizing that you were a comedian?
Oh Jesus! Way too late. Way too late. Yeah, March 27th, 2011. That's the exact date that I started stand-up comedy.
Oh, interesting. You know the date and everything, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty much like I've always loved comedy my entire life, but it's just like one of those unattainable things. I thought, like, how the hell do you even get into this shit? And turns out you just go to a bar and suffer for years and years and with other idiots stupid enough to pursue something so wild. But I've loved comedy my entire life, and I just went to my first professional comedy show, and Gary Goldman was performing, and I was like, okay, well, this is what I need to do forever, like some dumbass, until some horrible virus comes in and shuts down every goddamn business that we're allowed to perform in. Yeah. Wow. So that's how it started.
your stand up is very very equality based, and it's brilliant because it comes from as you tell the story, it makes even more sense to me because, and we've talked about this before, but it's like, it's really, now that there's a distance between us, I'm just like really hearing this. I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's why your jokes about homosexuality or acceptance or equality are so poignant, because you lived the life,
Yeah. Jeffrey said earlier that it's like growing up with two moms. I have a joke where I literally set it up kind of like that, but I say I had two women for parents, and that's not like growing up with two moms. In my case, I had a mom and a woman that I called Coach, because they met at a softball game, and I called her Coach. She was the coach of the baseball team. So
did she coach you up? Did she coach you up?
I hated baseball so much. It was awful. Such a boring sport. I was afraid of getting hit by the ball.
You know, Ryan, and I, for the people that are watching this, that are listening to this as a podcast, you got to check out the Zoom because Jeff Keller has a picture of Frederick Douglass in his background. And I'm noticing how much, Ryan, you kind of look like Frederick Douglass. I mean, you got the beard, you got the who are your social consciousness influences outside of like the regulars like Martin Luther King and those types of things? Like,
right.
Do you read a lot of stuff like that? How do you educate yourself?
Man, I wish I read more. I think everybody says that. I have barely any focus to read nowadays, but it's funny that you brought that up, but you also said don't mention Dr. Martin Luther King.
Mention who you want, man. Don't let Ron tell you what to do.
You do what you want, Ryan. Ron don't know shit.
You know I'm used to pushing around white guys, so I apologize. Let me just go back to my cage.
Jesus. Please break the cage. Yeah, it's funny that you asked me that because you know, the time that we're in right now with Black Lives Matter and all this police brutality that's existed forever. We just have cell phones now. I spent a lot of my later teenage years by myself out in the fucking woods of New Hampshire, no friends. I didn't have any way to live around my friends at this point. So I needed to move in with my mom, and I started working a job on the farm that we lived on. Taking care of horses and dogs. So I was alone most of the time, just relying on the internet. That's probably why I'm a big internet nerd nowadays. I'm always on the internet. But I spent a lot of that time just looking up and researching the 60s. And I wound up falling in love with Martin Luther King and big love for Bobby Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And I started listening to their words and the things that they were saying. And you know, Bobby was just such a civil rights icon at the time. I felt very inspired. And then, of course, you know, they're murdered by the FBI and or something along those lines. Yeah. And, so I immediately fell in love with that, and I was alive during the Bush administration. You know, as a young man, I can easily say that I really started getting heavily involved in politics because he was against gay marriage and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that earlier you brought up New England and how New England is such it's both sides of the coin, really, because even Massachusetts is one of the most racist fucking cities you can go to, but they were the first to pass gay marriage in the country. It's their priorities. Crazy, it's such a weird, like, they're just walking around calling everything fucking queer. Yeah, this is queer. That's queer. Maybe I'm queer. You know, let's pass some laws. Let's get this done.
That's because Roy Cohn used to hang out there. That's why they passed it.
Right. So, yeah, I was big into the 60s, and then I paid a lot of attention watching The Daily Show. That was a big inspiration. I already forgot whatever your fucking question was, Ron, but
well, you know, I'm going to leave this.
Rights icons.
You answered it, and you said something that just reminded me I wanted to bring. So you have a really, really interesting way of making side hustle cash.
Oh, yeah. What a transition.
Please, yeah, did you like that transition?
Fuck, all right, tell us,
make
Ryan.
A right turn. But if you could tell everybody what you do to make side cash.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, I decided to start producing my own pornography and selling my own porn on the internet.
What kind of porn?
Just, you know, usually solo stuff. I have a couple videos of me with some ladies, but yeah, that's so mental health has been a big thing that I've been talking about in my comedy and online and stuff like that. You know, occasionally I'll do a vlog or write something, and I've made a lot of friends on Twitter that share, you know, the same diagnosis or something similar. Mm-hmm. So I've made a lot of friends online who share a lot of the same. Not I'm getting to that. Yes, but I'm getting to that. So, and turns out that a lot of these, I would follow cam girls. Who doesn't want to see a bunch of naked women in your timeline constantly? So I'd started following porn actresses, And I had at the time like a hashtag in my bio saying that I have borderline personality disorder. Before you know it, I had a ton of cam girls messaging me saying, "Oh, you're a comedian. That's so cool. I also have BPD." And I started getting a lot of messages from people, not just in porn, but quite a few in the porn
Hold on a
industry.
second. Hold on a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. What did you put down to get those messages?
I didn't use it
Borderline
as some sort
personality
of.
disorder, right?
Also, I follow people on Twitter. That's a big part of it too. So they'll follow back.
Hashtag.
You don't abuse it. Don't use it for something nefarious. Jeez, it's not that hard to
He
get laid.
will. I promise you.
But
But that's why we love him.
So I had people talking to me about my openness of mental health on the internet. And before you know it, I started making friends in the porn industry. And I already have a bunch of friends here in Las Vegas who are involved in the porn industry. And before you know it, a compliment or two from a gay fan or from a lady, or just anybody in general, might boost your confidence a little bit and maybe convince you that you might have something worth selling on the internet. If you got it, flaunt it. If you flaunt it, sell it. Right?
Are you selling ginger dick?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Yep. Pretty much. Been doing that for about 2 years. I had a bunch of friends tell me that I'm handsome. I got what it takes, and I was like,
He is
"Fuck it."
pretty, ain't he?
I was, and the big key.
Oh, you got
part,
Ron over here drooling right
Oh,
now.
Ron
well,
looks
he's
at you like you're a
disgusting.
fucking peppermint
Oh
candy.
my
Jesus
God.
Christ.
You should see us in person. He can't take his hands off me. It's honestly,
Oh,
it's
it's
disgusting.
ridiculous. And then we start cuddling. It's disgusting.
We got a great pic of Ron and I laying in bed together somewhere on
Yeah,
Facebook.
that's all
Like
City.
ginger
Yeah.
root.
But yeah, and the ginger thing, obviously, that's a pretty unique thing. Plus, on top of that, being a comedian means that I'm most likely, not most likely, most comedians are fucking morons, but I'm relatively charming, I think, and I can say a sentence without sounding like a dipshit. So that combined with, a bunch of compliments, I was eventually motivated. And I don't want to have a normal job. I've been trying to avoid normal jobs my entire life. I really have. I can't even apply for unemployment. I haven't had a normal job in so long because I've been just trying to make money through comedy and the internet and stuff like that. And so it just really appealed to me a lot getting into the business. And
So what kind of porn do you do? Jeff and I are like perplexed. We're fascinated with you. So what do you do exactly? What is this that you're doing?
it's men are usually baffled by it because oftentimes I'll have men ask me two questions. They'll be like, why are you doing this? And then I'll tell them that I get money, and then they'll go, how? And how do you do this? Please, I need to sell my penis on the internet. It's pretty much literally, I'll take it's selfies, dick pics, videos. I do a lot of looping videos like Boomerang. It's literally jerking off on camera. That's essentially it. That's it. The same thing that women do, but as a dude. And I sell it to almost exclusively gay dudes.
Is it what is that flag behind you? What is that?
That is the Texas flag. Two of my roommates are from Texas. I promise it's not a Confederate
better move
flag.
out, man. I want to see that. There's a lot of racism in that shit.
It sure is.
Douglas right here. Man, you better watch yourself over there.
By the way, I love the imagery here. Okay, so we have a straight man who sells his ginger dick pics to gay people in front of a Texas flag, right on top of a guy who's half white, half black, with Frederick Douglass in the background, and then we have Mike Moritor and myself, who are disgusting animals that need to be kept.
I'm in my dungeon right now, Ryan. So I can't hate on you.
Yeah.
So I get you.
Hey,
So
this was the only seat in the house that I could find that had good lighting.
So you make good money from this, then.
I don't miss anything. I'm telling you right now.
All right. He's got me.
Mike, what was your question?
So you make good money from this, enough to live, correct?
It could be better. And I've gotten by. I've been getting by through quarantine. I'm not a man of. I don't need a lot to get by as well. I'm not a money spender at all, or anything like that. So it's it's been paying the bills for some time, and occasionally you'll get somebody that wants to give you more than the average for something, some type of worshiping type out there. I have to deal with all sorts of different guys who are so
I'm
gross.
dying to hear. Please give us a couple examples of some standout individuals.
Well, I've sold socks and underwear to a dude.
Socks and underwear.
Oh yeah, yeah. They want to sniff that stuff. They want to wear it like a COVID.
Damn.
So how much is socks and underwear going for?
$30 is what I sell it for, which is enough to cover the shipping and then buy another pair.
Now, is it Fruit of the Loom or is it Boxers Briefs? What is this?
Hanes, like nice little small one.
Got the Fruit of the Loom.
Ron said, I have a comedy show, underwear show, and those are usually the ones that I'm wearing on stage. Is small. I'm a small, skinny little thing. So
Wait, hold up. You go on stage in underwear?
hell yeah. I mean, I used to.
You got a little yellow
when
piece
you were allowed
right
to.
there in front?
I have a comedy show called Underwear Show, where we
Really
get
popular.
comics to perform in their underwear on stage. It's a lot of fun.
What kind of audience is there?
Just a bunch of random people, honestly.
Packed
Just
out.
Vegas locals.
I
Yeah.
don't know if it's a certain type of group of people. I didn't
Oh,
know.
a whole bunch of people that want to see other people in their underwear.
Do they throw money on stage?
No, we get donations at the end. We're not
Oh,
strippers.
y'all got to step your game up, man.
Yeah, you should charge like $300 for the underwear and see if you can get that, and then work your way down.
That'd be a tough one.
And just for the if you were to jog around the block a couple times, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then send then I'll take a pair of your underwear.
That's the
Damn.
that is the demand. That
Ron likes the skid
they're
marks.
good and funky. That is also a demand. I haven't gotten that
Really?
one, thankfully. No, I'll be grateful if I don't get that one. But $30 is $30.
I heard that.
Like whatever.
I got to start wearing underwear. Shit.
Yeah, I encounter, because I have this conversation a lot with comics. I encounter a lot of people that are just like, how could you even do something like this? And it's like, it's the internet. All I'm seeing is messages that are just compliments. I could show you I put together a video like a month ago where I screen capped my phone. So I'm just scrolling through hundreds and hundreds of compliments on Reddit, because a big portion of being an independent porn producer is that's what I like to say. That's what I like to call it.
I absolutely love you, Ryan.
Independent porn producer. The IPP, as I like to say. A big portion of selling your own and producing your own porn is self-advertising. And I found that websites like Reddit and Twitter are the best places to do that for free. So that's essentially what I do. Is I follow people on Twitter that I think would have an interest in what I'm offering. And then they usually follow me back because I am offering what they're interested in, and then it starts.
You got any famous people that like hit you up for some shit?
I have plenty of famous people following me on my regular Twitter account, including the lead singer of Smash Mouth. Don't mean to brag.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
You are a star, Ryan.
That was a weird one. Gary Busey is a weird one too, but I think he'll follow anybody. But
Has Gary asked for any underwear yet? Has Gary asked for any underwear?
No. And I wouldn't be able to, I don't think I can divulge that sort of information. That'd be a breach of trust. I trust these people that buy my nudes not to post them on some other website.
Yeah. Do you think that your desire not to hold a full-time job and doing the porn is directly related to your BPD, or is it something, have you ever gone to the state to get what do they call it, medical disability?
Oh, no, absolutely, yeah. I was on disability for probably about 3 or 4 years because the first time I ever went to a psych hospital, they said, yeah, I've been to 7 for depression and stuff like that.
Now,
Suicidal.
Ryan, do you take medication now? Like
I
psych meds?
I currently just smoke pot because I'm waiting on my Medicaid card to come in, actually. But every experience that I've had with antidepressants and stuff like that, the side effects are just so goddamn terrible, where I'm just sleepy all the time, yawning constantly. I'll be in a worse mood, literally no sleep. Fortunately, I got my medical marijuana card, and having been to 7 psych wards, I can no longer buy a firearm, so that's good. You don't have to even concern yourself with that. And I'm a pacifist.
You giving Ron ideas about this whole dick pic and the whole making money.
Oh, we've talked about. I'm sure he's subscribed.
You giving him a new avenue.
No. Just Ryan is like, he's my perfect boyfriend. He would probably kill me in my sleep. You know what I mean?
As he should.
He wouldn't like me. You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't want to talk to me.
Double hate crime? I don't think so.
You know what I mean?
But you guys wouldn't compete, Ron. You'd have a whole different markets.
Yeah, that's what the reality of it is that I think that obviously I've had my own struggles with mental health and things like that, and when you hear Ryan's stand up, it's so brilliantly written around his perceptions of what equality is that I find him hilarious. And I think that straight white male comics, especially a bunch of these LA motherfuckers, should check him out and see how you do comedy about women, about gays and things like that without being offensive and pretending that your desire to be a shock comedian is funny and not offensive. There's a gray area between offensive and funny, and Ryan has a very unique style to that. Ryan, what inspires you? Like, how do you write your jokes? How do you structure? What's that all about?
Life experience. Just I'm actually a really, really slow writer, and thank you for the compliments. I'm very slow with writing. Sitting down and writing, I've never been very good at, and it's just typically it's a matter of just going out and hating something, or it's just a lot of just my opinions and views on the world, honestly, just from sitting back and just observing and whatnot. But I don't know. It's just literally what I think is funny. Ron gives me too much credit. I honestly have jokes that are intended to be funny, offensive to the right people, is what I'd say. I don't try to kick the underdog or anything like that, or I don't have any jokes about trans people or any incredibly racist jokes that obviously don't come from a point of irony or sarcasm or something like that. But I tell really, really gross, offensive jokes that I think are coming from the right perspective of what how you should feel in life, anti-wife beating jokes. And I told, I got in front of a big crowd at a casino one night, and I started telling my Confederate statue joke, which is a joke that I lead people through, saying, I don't think that we should tear down these Confederate statues, and then you give it a little pause to offend everybody. And then you say, I think we should start drilling holes in them and fucking them, just wipe your dick off of the Confederate flag, that sort of thing. And I walk them through that joke. But I've told that joke at a casino once, and one of the closest tables was a table where 3 out of 6 of the people were wearing cowboy hats. And when I said, I don't think that we should tear down Confederate statues, he cheered. And then I followed it up by, I think that we should fuck them and all that sort, turn them into brass dildos and shove them up our asses. And seeing the disappointment in that table specifically, when everybody else started laughing around them, that's what I strive for when it comes down to offending people. I want those people to be offended.
That's awesome. That's a great joke. You are funny.
Thank you.
But how much money do you make a day selling dick pics?
I knew he was going there too. He's curious.
Yeah.
Jeff is going.
Suddenly,
he's got a new job.
Yeah. How much you make?
Suddenly, Jeff wants
Exactly.
to.
What hashtags do you use?
What's a good day?
Jeff is going to start up his own small business. Wink, wink.
I got hey, everybody needs some small shit too. Shit, it don't matter.
It's not really a daily thing. It's a subscription-based thing. At
Subscription.
least the way that I go about
Come
things.
on, Jeff. He's a professional.
Hold on now. Hold on. You messing with my business here. So what do you charge?
Currently it's $5 a month, and then $10 for the month after that.
Huh? $5.
Yep. See, the way that you got it, Jeff, here's the hard part is that you're dealing with men, so you have to manipulate them.
It better be
into
hard.
buying your things. So I like to say things like, it's just $5. That's cheaper than most beers. And that's how you trick men into buying your porn. It's easy as that.
How many, Ryan? How many
They're
subscriptions
cavemen.
do you have? How many do you have now?
It depends on what platform we're going off of, because I'm on.
So let's say total. Let's say all.
I'm on several websites. I mean, it also it depends on if we're including my comedy too, because I got like 65,000 followers on there.
Listen,
So I got
total porn subscriptions.
Wait, hold on. You got 65,000 followers at $5 a pop?
no, that's on my
my
regular porn
people
account.
Are paying $5 a pop?
It's 23.
Okay,
Right
that's
now.
not bad. That's a start.
It's not bad.
That's all right.
And on
That's all
occasion, you get tips too. It's not
Mhm.
just subscription based. People will just send you money because you turned them on super hard that day, or whatever the fuck people who do that, who watch my porn think about.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that.
Wait, was Ron's idea? Was it Ron's idea?
No,
Ron,
I think
did you
he's
subscribe?
probably.
No, I can't do it. I stay far away.
Ron gets it for free. He's like, "Why am I going to pay for it?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I get. How I get my
every
gigs.
every time I see one of Ryan's posts about his dick pic, I just turn on Grindr. I'm like, okay, and
Hey, see, you should be paying him, Ron, because you're using him for foreplay. You see?
Ryan is the best straight bait you're ever going to have. If you are looking to, he's just the best ever. You know what I mean? We're coming to the end of this, and Jeff, I'm going to give you, I want to turn this to you because you and Ryan have some commonality there. Do you have any final questions that you'd like to ask Mr. Ryan Bourassa?
Yeah, I think actually, Ryan, you should actually see somebody and see if you can unlock them doors of your past, and that might help you with a better future.
Oh yeah. I actually have, which is why I probably have a pretty easy time for the most part, other than crying hysterically. But I can usually articulate my feelings and things like that really well because I did about 7 years in therapy, and I moved to Vegas and I didn't pursue it after coming here, but I have an interest, especially maybe online therapy, where I wouldn't have to sit in a goddamn waiting room with my fellow crazy people and just feel like garbage, because that was a big hard part, is going out to go to therapy just to talk about your feelings for 45 minutes. And you feel like shit afterwards sometimes.
Yeah.
And then it's like, let's do this again next week. So yeah, I'm absolutely interested in talking to a professional, but it's also hard because I feel like therapy aversion is a big part of BPD and not trusting the system. And I feel like even therapists, it's like a lot of people get into that business because they themselves have a lot of problems, and it's like how much do I want to trust in that? But I'm absolutely interested, especially in
what worries me is when
stuff.
you say that you don't remember your childhood,
Mm-hmm.
and so those are things that's because of trauma.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. You need to see somebody, see if you can unlock those doors of that trauma.
Ryan, know when you unlock those doors,
studying
because I went through the same thing, and because I've been going to therapy, I go to psychiatrists for like 30 years. Know though, when you unlock those doors, because I used to do the same thing. I would blank out my childhood because it was so fucking bad. Just prepare for that. That would be my advice as a friend. When they start digging, just know that what you're going to feel is going to be probably worse than anything you've ever felt in your life. So just prepare for that. But once you get through it, you'll be fine.
I promise. How did you feel I promise. I know exactly what you're talking about because I've done it.
I felt it initially. It was tremendously bad.
Right.
But over the course of like a year, I felt better. Like before, I would never set boundaries with my family members. I would just let them do stupid shit. And now it's like I tell them no every day. It's like, no, I'm not giving you any more money. No, you're not going to do that. No, you're not having that. No, 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 no. Because it's like they're like little kids. But my childhood was like Anne Frank bad. So two lesbian moms or two lesbian parents, that's nothing compared to the shit that we went through. But when you unlock those doors, know that it's going to be pretty intense. But what's cool about it, the positive, Ryan, is once you get through it, it's like going through a tunnel. You'll feel free. You'll feel a lot more free, physically, mentally, spiritually. You'll feel like a different person.
Like I said, I've already done it. I know what you're talking about. I've already seen a therapist, saw a therapist for 7 years, did that whole conversation. And like Jeffrey had said too, he had some head trauma himself. I was involved in boxing and things like that. So maybe my memory isn't so great in that area. Right. And yes, lesbian parents might be cushy compared to an Anne Frank-like life, but I wouldn't compare two things.
I one of the things I've learned is never to compare trauma. Trauma is trauma, regardless of who experienced it, and it affects everybody differently. And so it's really important, more so than to try and compare. It's more about finding commonality.
This fella here might have a big portion to do with my memory loss, for all I know. Honestly, like it's hard to put a finger on that, and I wasn't molested as a kid. I can say that. I can, as Oprah says, when you're asked if you were molested, it's either you say yes or I don't remember. It's not one of those situations. It's literally I just have a bad memory, and that was equated by my therapist to be heavily involved with post-traumatic stress disorder and stuff like that. I came to some very, very close, dead ends in terms of when I was boxing. I was injured very, very badly and stuff like that. So I equate it to that, and I try not to get hung up on stuff. That was a big part of why I didn't pursue therapy more, is I felt like I was getting hung up on a lot of things when I could probably just move on or attempt to. But I'm still interested.
How long did you box for?
Since I was a kid, to like teenage years, and then I suffered a spleen rupture and almost died. So God. Had to call it quits on that. I could probably get back into it now, but I've always had a passion for it because my mom was a professional first-degree black boxer, professional first-degree black belt in kickboxing. Always had a passion for that stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And just to close it out, is there anything for anybody that's listening, first of all, that may have a borderline personality disorder, or to people that may listen that now that they are there symptoms that people can look for? In other words, what I'm trying to ask is, how can we help people who may not be familiar with that identify people who have that and have more compassion for their emotional space that they need and all that good stuff, if that makes sense?
The first area that I'd say is make sure that you're not diagnosing other people. If you recognize a problem in another person, don't diagnose. It's hard to suggest therapy to somebody, but that would be probably healthier than just going, you might have borderline personality disorder or something like that. But in terms of recognizing it within yourself, I'd say it's once you understand the symptoms, it's relatively easy to gather. Just look through your past history. How good is your memory? How good is your relationship with people that you're close to? Have you had a lot of turmoil in family and very, very close relationships? And I think number one is how often are you crying for no reason, or what you perceive as no reason? That's a big thing that I went through, and I still go through my entire life, is just how up and down are your feelings. If you don't have a big control over your feelings, maybe check out a therapist, and definitely check out medication too. I didn't want to sound like I was speaking up against that sort of thing, but it just didn't work for me.
Right.
Or I never found one that did, but I think BPD, once you just look up the symptoms, people at home, guys, look it up if you don't know. It's very interesting, honestly. How the brain works.
Yeah, my ex-business partner was undiagnosed BPD, and he wasn't getting a lot of sleep. We were, this back when I was in the tech industry and working long hours, and then he had to get committed. It was 5150, I guess is the phrase of it, but he had to get committed against his will because he was undiagnosed and wasn't getting sleep, and he was smoking a lot of weed, and there's a lot of stress, and everything just unraveled, and that's where I became more familiar with it. So when I met you, which is like maybe 2-3 years after that impact date, I was much more understanding and intrigued because you're able to talk about it so eloquently and so openly. So I really do, first of all, want to thank you for that. Mike, any final questions?
No, it was a pleasure meeting you, Ryan.
You too, Mike. Thank you for having me on the show.
Ryan, first of all, once again, thank you for being so open and honest and having this conversation. I really do appreciate. Yeah, I really do appreciate it as your friend and professionally.
Lover.
I respect the book. I respect and lover. As your gay lover. I respect the shit out of you.
Fucking Ron, Jesus Christ,
Mike. Listen, Ryan, just so you know, because Mike doesn't get as vulnerable as you. Like, Mike will never cry. So what he has me do is every Saturday morning, I usually go over and beat his dick with a hammer, just so he can feel. He can feel.
I can tell. I can see that relationship
and
between you two.
We're cutting into his hammer beating dick time. So just understand he's a little upset right now.
I get it. Hey, I appreciate you allowing me to get my morning cry out of the way. Now I don't have to do it later.
I can't believe that Mike let him get away with that.
Did you see that?
I'm going to get him later, Jeff, when he least expects it. I'm just going to choke him out the way he loves it with the kabuki mask on.
Oh, Jesus.
No,
this is what I
guys.
No restraints, Mike.
What?
Mike, no restraints, Mike.
No, I'm just going to hang you with a belt, like the way that you like, and make you fly. Like suspend, like you're in the Matrix.
See,
put
Ryan,
a lot of thought into that one.
See, Ryan, that's why you're my number one, Ryan. There is no competition.
I'm very flexible.
Absolutely.
Ryan, this is what I deal with every day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
Ryan.
so sorry.
If you can imagine, Jeff is the only normal one here. You know what I mean?
This is why I look depressed all the time, Ryan. This is why right here I look depressed.
I understand it.
Jeff, do you have any final questions?
Yeah, Ryan, you think you cry every day. Nick, this is why I cry every day, right here.
I feel your pain.
Thank you, brother. See, I understand.
Ryan, thank you I can't wait to get you back out here to Los Angeles, and I can't wait to see you again in Vegas as well. These guys would love your act. I'm sure of it. Can you tell everybody where to find you, whether they want to buy dick pics or if they want to check out your stand-up?
Absolutely. Best way to get access to my pornography is to just go to my regular Twitter account, which is at Ryan Kickassa. My porn account is at JokeSlut. You can find all of my links at allmylinks.com/Ryan Kickassa. That is literally just about every link that I have, including the dirty ones. That's about it.
And you can find me at My Mom's White on Instagram and Twitter. And on my porn site, you can find me at My Mom's White, but my dick's not.
Hell yeah. Hey, that's a start, man. There's people want to buy anything. It's just about giving a personal experience. So you might have what it takes. Get out there, snap some selfies, and put them on the internet.
You could be like Jeff. You could be like a chocolate covered gilf. Is that what you would be called, Ron? Like is it gilf? You'd be like a chocolate covered gilf, right? My mom's white, but I'm a gilf.com or whatever the fuck you are.
You guys
Ron and Ryan will guide you, Jeff. They will guide you.
You just ruined a perfectly good joke, just right there.
They will guide you. They will guide you.
That's how he does. Yeah, and by the way,
I will
Jeff,
guide you for money.
Apparently, Ryan's packing pretty good over there too, so he can guide you through the process.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
Allegedly, that's right. I'm trying to sell you some subscriptions right now, Ryan.
Yeah, please buy my pornography.
He's holding like a fucking arm.
I need to pay
baby
rent.
arm with an apple with little ginger freckles all over it.
I don't even want to know how Ron knows. We don't want to know. We good.
I know he's seen my shit.
I've seen so many ginger dicks I could fucking pick them out in the police lineup.
He sees so many ginger dicks, he won't even drink ginger ale.
All right. And
You
with
sons
that,
of bitches.
I know. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that has been another episode of And So You Think You Got Problems.
So you think you got problems?
So
So
you
you-
got problems.
So you think you got problems?
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, the most amazing comedian in Vegas, Mr. Ryan Bourassa. Ryan, thank you very much.
Thanks,
for
guys.
Thank you, Ryan.
tuning
Thank you
in.
for having
Thanks,
me.
Ryan. You're fun.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day and stay healthy. And I look forward to doing shows with you as soon as this pandemic is over.
I love you. Please don't Joey Diaz me anymore. I'm tired of sucking your dick for gigs.
Whoa!
Waka waka.
Whoa! Bam!
Just,
I miss you
just
a bunch.
So you know, he's never gotten a gig.
That is true. Yes. Thanks, guys.
That's
And, yeah,
because Ron, you lied to the man. You lied to him.
You're conning him, Ron. Ron the con.
Lied
It's
to
called
him.
the bait and switch. It's called the bait and switch. He falls for it every time. He has a short memory.
It's easy to get gigs through Ron. All you got to do is teach him how to use his cell phone. He has no idea. I'm surprised he's even able to do all this. Like,
And this
yes.
show is over.
I'm gonna go take my clothes off for money, guys. It was really great talking to you guys. Thank you.
All right,
You
brother.
guys-
Make that
I'll
money.
talk to you later.
Ryan, you're amazing. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Bye, guys.